Hello, solopreneurs. I am on location in LA today. I've got a great interview with someone who is so impressive. You are going to love it. But first, let me ask you a question. Have you ever spent time doing something you love and thought, I should be doing this for a living? We're talking about monetizing your passion. So often when we think about starting your own business, we think about something like providing a service, like coaching or copywriting. But you don't have to take that route if you don't want to. You can absolutely turn your talent, your passion, into a very profitable business. And my guest today is proof. Welcome to the Solopreneur Life Podcast. I am your host, Kathryn Aragon. At Solopreneur Life, our mission is to equip you with the skills, habits, and mindsets that you need to hit six figures and beyond. Enjoy the freedom, profits, and the fun of running your own business your way. Join us every week as we dive into the nitty-gritty of going solo. And today, I am talking with the Rebecca Tillman-Young. She is the owner of RTY Art, and she has built a seven-figure business simply by monetizing her artistic talent. Before we dive in, though, I want you to take a minute to subscribe to the Solopreneur Life Podcast wherever you tune in. And ready, Rebecca? Shall we dive in?
Hello.
Well, welcome.
Hey,
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself and RTY Art.
Okay, well, I'm Rebecca. I am a painter by trade. I've studied painting. That's been kind of my goal my whole life. But, making money as an artist is a huge challenge. I think everybody knows that you go into it kind of expecting that you're going to live in a cardboard box for a while. But, when you actually start living in the box, it's really uncomfortable and it's not so much fun. So I was kind of not wanting to stay there. I really wanted to figure out a way to turn this into something that I could live on instead of just, constantly kind of waiting for that maybe someday in the future sort of moment. So I work with my husband, and we, over the last, we just had our 8th anniversary. So over the last 8 years, we have, thank you. We have been going through a lot of different variations of how to make money and make time for the things that we love doing. For me, that's always been art. And what we landed on was actually a business that was an art business, which was a crazy thing because I don't know that I really expected to make money from that venue. That was always the I'll do that when we're making money from something else kind of thing. So RTY Art is an educational business. It's an online art education business where I create online courses that teach people. I'm mostly doing portraits because that's kind of my home-based skill set. So I teach drawing portraits, I teach painting portraits, I even teach a Procreate portraits course, and we sell those courses online. We have, Facebook groups to support those courses, and we've been doing this in some variation. We started the business RTY Art, I want to say about 4 years ago now, okay. But it's been on quite a journey before it landed on what it is today, which is what actually makes money.
Isn't that typical, though?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Now, actually, this isn't your first business.
No.
So tell us a little bit about that journey, like a lot of ups and downs as you experimented and learned before you hit on this idea.
Yeah, I mean, we've done we call it throwing spaghetti at the wall.
I love that.
It's just like, let's try this thing. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this other thing. Oh, that didn't work. Now, let me interrupt for a minute. Okay. You're saying that didn't work. Sometimes not working is simply we didn't like it.
That's
true. That's absolutely true. Because there have definitely been a few things that there was one time a few years back, we were starting like a flower subscription business. I think we saw this idea. We were like, this is great. Flowers make people happy. We can totally do this. We went to like the flower district downtown and we bought up all these bouquets. We took photos and we built out we did this whole thing. And we got to the point where we were getting ready to do it. And we were like, do we really want to be florists? That's not we neither of us actually wanted to do it once we actually got down to it. So we had this whole thing built out and then we were like, maybe not, let's try something else. So we've done a lot of that. We've had a lot of different, again, just throwing that spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks and what doesn't. And this one stuck. because it plays to our strengths. And I think that's a big part of it too, is we've always been trying to do these things. A lot of what we've tried to do has been like just, it seems like an easy way to get something off the ground quickly. But it's not something that either of us was really passionate about, or it didn't really play to our strengths. And I think there's definitely strength in leaning into your strengths. Like, don't shy away from what you're best at. Like, figure out a way to use that.
Well, it's not just your skills and talents, is it? It's also what makes you happy.
Absolutely.
So I say optimize for happiness.
Absolutely. I mean, what is the point of what we're doing as entrepreneurs if it's not to like create a happier life? Like if it wasn't about happiness, I would just like go get a job like everybody else, right? And just like do the grind. But I don't want to.
Yeah, ultimately, we're a little unemployable.
A little bit, right. We've definitely created a life where we get to like do the things that we enjoy, and that's really beautiful. I really appreciate that. And that's become very important.
You've only been married for 8 years. How many of those years have y'all been entrepreneurs?
Pretty much the whole time. Almost. It was about, I mean, my husband Luke is a very entrepreneurial mind, and I think from the very get-go, even before we got married, he already had like side gigs, and like he was doing this online marketing stuff kind of in his own way back then. We got married within a year. He had started, and you know, I was helping, but I was a little bit less involved at that point. He had started like a tech support business because he was in IT at the time, and we had a couple of clients doing that. We had some lead generation stuff that was bringing in some income. So we started pretty quickly, like pretty much the whole time we've been married, we've been doing something or other in this space. We had a couple of clients. We moved out to LA because they were, you know, we didn't have to be any one place. We decided let's move somewhere we want to be. We moved out here because it was fun. And ever since it's been like, okay, but we still wanted to get something of our own off the ground, not just be relying on clients or, you know, other people. So that began the journey of, you know, throwing the spaghetti. Yeah, exactly.
Well, so tell me about your wall.
Yes. So in our house right now, we have a wall that has framed little logos because we wanted to commemorate all of these steps on the journey that got us to where we are, because you know, we call it our wall of failure, but it's failures that we're proud of, you know, it's the failures that got us where we are. It's all the things that, you know, all the different businesses, all the different logos of the things that we've done and we've tried that didn't last or didn't really get us anywhere.
So are the flowers on the wall?
They're on the wall.
Okay. Yep. And so what are a few of the other logos?
We have, one of the other companies that we are currently still involved in is Steady Horse, which is a company that he and I run with my brother-in-law who trains horses. So it's a very similar business to RTY Art, except that instead of teaching art skills, it teaches horse training skills, because that's what Noah's passionate about. So again, it's leaning into passion. Exactly.
Yes.
So that one's close to the end of our, you know, the RTY Art and Steady Horse are at the end because those are like the culmination of all the other things that we've done. But we have the flower business up there. We had one called Becoming Ink, where we were going to do like art t-shirts for a while, and we like collaborated with a couple of like people who'd like gone viral and stuff like that, did some designs with them, and it just never really went anywhere. It was a crazy experience. We kind of got our audience. It was, you know, it's always a learning experience. You learn something, you're like, wow, I thought this was going this way. It went in an entirely different direction. That's not where I thought this was going, but okay. We have, let me think, there's a bunch of them. There's another business. One of our first businesses that we started and ran when we were in LA was called Carriage Booking, which was especially around the holidays. It was a big holiday business, and we had carriage companies that we interfaced with all over the country, and we had a website and a call service, and people would call to book the carriages, and we would then find the carriage company to fulfill the booking. So it was really big around the holidays and stuff like that, but it made Christmas and all the holidays, it made them an absolute nightmare. It was always like the most stressful time of the year. It was horrible.
Holidays,
but you know, but again, it was a great experience. We learned a lot. That was like our first it was the first time we were working with Noah, or one of the early times we were working with Noah, and it was we had to go through like a call service for a while, and like we had all this different stuff, just problem solving the aspects of running a business, and you know, all of that. You always learn something, which is why there's the wall, right? Because every one of those things that we tried that, you know, didn't work. When I say didn't work, I'm, you know, air quoting that, because there's always a way to look at it where like we got a lot out of it every single time. It's an education every time you try something that doesn't work.
That's such an important point. We learn from every failure.
Yeah.
And as a solopreneur, you can expect a lot of failures.
You kind of have to. You have to get comfortable with that idea.
Right. And I've done it too. I've started and ended several different brands.
Right.
That, it's like, oh, it was a cute idea or whatever. And
right.
It
just for whatever reason, it's not what you wanted to do,
exactly.
or you couldn't get whatever it was that didn't work, or that you just decided to move on. But
right.
yeah.
So that's just part of the journey. And I think that's an important thing for us to emphasize. But now let's go back to your art.
Okay.
Now, you've been an artist, and I'm air quoting that, since you were a child.
Yes.
So, did you ever dream that you would be able to build a 7-figure business from your art?
I don't think I did. I mean, in my wildest dreams, I was, a rich and famous artist, but I feel like that looked very different from any sort of reality.
What were you picturing?
I honestly, I don't know that I really knew what it looked like to be a successful artist. And, in my head, it was, oh, well, I'm going to have shows in galleries all the time, and I'm hobnobbing with these fancy people and doing all the things. And then I got the degree, and I started trying to move into that world, and I met other artists who are successful artists, and I realized none of them are really making that much money either, even the ones who are doing really well. And so I started realizing okay, we knew this wasn't a get rich quick scheme. This is definitely a long play. You get lucky if maybe in your future you make money.
Be rich after you die.
Right. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll be 50 or 60 and you'll start making money from your art. But I don't think I ever imagined that it would look like this, or that by 30 I would have a business that was profitable, that I would be able to live in LA in a nice place that's not rat infested, because places are expensive here.
And this really is a beautiful house. For those of you who are listening, there is a lovely backyard with a covered patio. There's greenery all around, and she has a studio in the backyard.
Yes, that was, oh man, that made me so happy when we were able to get the house with the studio. I was like, oh, it's everything. It also is wonderful because we've been able to put all of our filming stuff out there too. So we now have room to we started this business in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Wow.
With no space. We literally, the dining room was the studio. We had filming equipment all over everything. It was an obstacle course. We were always climbing over things, trying to get to where we needed to be. It's so much better to have the space you need to have a room that's just set up for doing the thing.
That's part of optimizing for happiness. Yes. Giving yourself the space you need to be able to expand into what you do.
Yeah, we definitely we outgrew that apartment well before we left it.
Okay, well, now what was your biggest challenge? All right, you were doing art for yourself. You were aiming for the gallery. So what was the biggest challenge making this transition?
I would say there's a couple of aspects. On the one hand, I feel I really, really struggled to learn how to sell myself. I think that would have been something I would have had to learn to do the gallery stuff too eventually. But I think that's very difficult for a lot of us, especially artists. I feel we always I'm I just want my work to speak for itself. I just want to do my thing and then put it in the world and then go hide and not talk about it. Right.
Times. Yeah.
So that was a challenge, was getting used to being comfortable and confident enough to say nope, I'm doing this thing and it is worth this amount and you're lucky to get it and be excited with me. It's good stuff. Being able to say that confidently, I think took a bit of time and effort. I was, do
you feel like you're there now?
I feel I'm I don't know what 100% looks like. I feel I'm a lot further along than I was at the beginning.
87%.
Something in that range, exactly. But yeah, when I look back at the first videos that we were filming for RTY Art stuff, and it was I was so just nervous, and you could just see it in the video how anxious and stiff I was, and I was hello, I'm Rebecca, I painted this, would you like to learn to paint this too? It was very awkward. I feel I've definitely gotten more comfortable, and part of that too is I've taught this stuff for a while now. I've gotten very comfortable with my material. I've seen it work for people, so I can truly honestly say you can go through this. It will help you. Like, I genuinely believe it because I've seen it happen for like thousands of people at this point. So it's really amazing. Exciting to see that. It definitely has been a confidence boost for me to be able to help people that way.
Right.
And it's so cool to see someone come in at the front end and they're like, oh, I've never even been able to draw stick figures. I'm horrible at this. I'm just not talented. And there's a lot of like mindset stuff to break with them too. Like, I had to break my own mindset stuff about where I wanted to be and what it looked like to be successful. That was another element of the challenge, I think, to get here. But then to help other people kind of overcome that in themselves, because I don't believe in talent. I've kind of like taken that word out of my vocabulary, especially with students, because I don't think it's a helpful term to talk about. I think talent is basically just practicing something over a long period of time, being persistent enough to keep practicing it and keep coming back to it. And that's, it's just skill. It's building a skill. And people see that and they're like, oh, you're so talented. They think it comes so easy. And it's like, no, we've been working at this. Like, I've been doing this since I was 2. Like, it's not that I'm just magical. I just worked really hard at it.
And people forget that they see the end result and then they're comparing themselves with that.
Exactly. So I spend a lot of time with my students just helping them to, I think, recognize that like it's okay to be bad at it. You have to be bad at it before you can be good at it. So like it's okay to be bad, and if you follow the steps and you practice and you know how to move forward from every step that you're at, which is what the whole course is about, is taking you through one step at a time so you can get to where you want to go and know how to keep going further. And that's kind of my philosophy of teaching, is basically this idea of like not just giving you like draw this line, but here are the tools you need to keep going as well. And I've seen that work for people, and it's really wonderful to see that happen and to see people's confidence in themselves build up. I see people come in and they're like, I can't believe I drew this. I never thought I would be able to do this. And look at this. It looks like a person. Like, it's so exciting.
So does that satisfy your early need to be an artist?
I think it does. And the other thing too is, it did take me some time to kind of, there's the whole like, those who can't do teach sort of maxim, which is such a, I think, stupid thing to get hung up on, but it did kind of hang me up for a little bit, because I was like, well, does this mean I'm giving up? Like, what does this really mean?
Does this mean I'm a failed artist?
Right.
Yes.
But the irony is that I'm actually much more prolific in making my own work now than I was before, because before I was so hung up on the fact that like I wasn't making anything that was I felt so worthless because I kept making things. And, even I would get shows, and I had work in like a TV show, and I've had work in a movie and things like that. But it would start going somewhere, and then I would just feel like, I don't know what I'm doing. And, you're not making any money. So you feel very, like valueless. I think for me, I was like trying to make sense of this idea that like, can I still be valuable if I'm not bringing anything material to the table? And I think that hung me up so much, and we were so focused on just trying to like pay rent and keep food on the table that you don't have time to be creative and like just guilt-free sit in your space and do your thing. It always felt like it had to be about something, about making money or doing it for someone else. And it wasn't about doing it for me. And so the irony is that now that I'm teaching and I've built a business about doing it for other people, I have way more time to do it for me too. So I spend a lot more time making my own work and like exploring my own ideas. And I feel much more fulfilled as an artist now than I did before.
Yeah. And don't you feel like when you start teaching and sharing what you know with other people, it actually makes you better?
Absolutely. And I love that element of teaching. Because it does force me, I think, to, when you're doing it for yourself, you can get lazy and you're like, I already know that. Like, I don't need, but when you're teaching it, like you have to check yourself, and you have to go and do a little more research and make sure, like, am I teaching this in the most effective way? And are there other things I could be teaching that would make this better? And so I do a lot more investigation and exploring and learning myself, which is so wonderful. I think that I've definitely gotten better as a result of my teaching.
It almost makes you more analytical of what you're doing. So instead of just doing a piece of work and putting it away, you go back and you evaluate And of course, anytime we will do that with our own work, we can take it to the next level.
Right. And, you know, I have to remind my students of is you're not going to be good at this right away. I find that like I have to turn that advice back on myself all the time too, because I'm always telling them, like, I get frustrated. I'm like, oh, why are you being so hard on yourself? Like, you're just starting. And then I'll find myself doing the exact same thing. Like, yes. I'm trying something new and I'm like, it's not working. And I'm like, I'm horrible at this, yes. Whatever. And I'm like, okay, like maybe I should listen to my own advice and like stick with it a little bit longer.
Right. So is there anything that, looking back at your journey, is there anything you would do differently?
I'm sure there are a lot of things that I would do differently, but I will say one thing. The way we started RTY Art was originally a subscription business, and we were doing the whole like free thing plus like a free DVD plus shipping plus like, you know, and you like take them down the funnel, and the end was like a VSL that led to like a $19 a month subscription, which was just like learn to do better art. Like it was not specific. It was not like about any one skill. Like I was just like, I'm going to show up and do a random art lesson every week and we'll just learn everything together. And I think it was it was too broad. There were a lot, like knowing what I know now, I know why that didn't work as well as we hoped it would, you know, but it was the beginning, and it was my first experience kind of like learning how to teach this stuff and what people wanted to learn and what people needed in order to learn it, like how to communicate effectively to people. Because I also think that if I had started trying to do what I do now, creating the courses and everything back then, I don't know if I would have known how to create something that would work as well, because I didn't have that experience working directly with people. So all that to say, I guess like regret is a kind of pointless thing to dwell in, since you can't change it and it got us where we are, right? So I don't regret it, but I do know that if I went back and made different decisions, we could have made more money earlier. So there's that.
Okay. Yeah. But I like that. I like your point about regret.
Yeah.
There's no sense in feeling regret over your mistakes. Yeah,
I mean, what if we learn? We already talked about how all of the mistakes we've made have led us to where we are. We've learned so much from them. I feel like that wall of failure was like an MBA. Like that was our college, that was our education in this field, because we just didn't know what we were doing. We had to learn it somehow, and we learned it by doing it.
So we've touched on this a little bit, how transformative it can be to build a successful business. How has it changed your life, and how has it changed the way you feel about everything, like even yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a huge shift, I think, in the way I've thought about myself personally. I think for me, confidence was, I don't know if I want to say, I mean, insecure, I guess, in a lot of ways. And I feel like I'm definitely a much more confident person now. Just by necessity, you have to build that confidence if you're going to be like on camera all the time too. But it is definitely very validating to be able to do something that feels valuable. Like I feel like I'm creating something of value and that is helping people, that's impacting people. And that's so meaningful. I think that's such a different place to be in than where I was before, which was just kind of like, oh, like, I don't know what to do. Nobody cares about what I'm doing. Like,
yeah. Now that brings me to an interesting thought. Okay. So many times, the minute we step into something successful, the trolls come out of the woodwork. Now, are you able to maintain that self-confidence and feeling like you're making a difference when you're battling with the trolls?
That's a great question, because the trolls are everywhere. There's no escaping them. It's something I've learned on the internet, is they're everywhere.
You have to develop a thick skin.
You really do. And I will say a big part of helping me manage that has been to hire someone to deal with the emails and customer service stuff, because we were doing all of that on our own at first, and especially starting out in the space we started out in with like the free, the subscription and all of that. I feel like we were a new brand. We didn't have a lot of
And frankly, you're a beautiful woman.
There's a lot of trolls on the internet about that too. But even disregarding that, we would get emails from people, are you a scam? I can't find this email that you sent me for free, so I don't know where it is, and you must be a scam, and that type of stuff. Or people scolding me for like the way I talk, or like whatever. Oh, you say like too much. I'm like, I do say like a lot, but it's just the way I talk, so I'm sorry. There's all of that, and it was definitely rough at the beginning, because we were still kind of feeling it out and we weren't sure that it was going to work. And so you get all the negative feedback and you're like, oh gosh, like everybody must be, especially the ones that repeat things that you've thought, right? Like if I have the thought, oh, I don't, I'm not good enough at this.
Validating that thought.
Exactly. And then someone else says it and then you're like, yeah, you're right. Totally. I should just give up and hang it up. I do feel like these days it's easier for me to kind of laugh it off. And like, there are still occasionally ones that I'm like, I get a little mad at. I'm like, oh, that's so unfair. Why, you can't say things like that. But, like, what's the point of getting mad at them? Ultimately, you just have to learn to laugh at it.
Yes.
Just be like, that's so ridiculous. Look at this person being ridiculous. What are they doing?
That's the right attitude. Because ultimately, you have to let it roll off your back.
You have to. Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Right. Because people are gonna like, they're just gonna. So people are gonna disagree with you. People are gonna not like you for whatever reason. And you can't control. Like, I used to really, I think, struggle with this idea that I could like find something that would please everybody, and you just can't. You have to let that go and just realize like there is going to be a certain percentage of people that just hate me no matter what.
Pick your audience.
Right. Like I'm going to talk to the people who don't hate me though, because they're great over here. These people are awesome. These people, we're just going to ignore them. They don't matter. They're not going to buy from me anyway. Like, why am I trying to make them happy?
There you go. I think that's really a good way to look at it. Those haters.
Yeah.
Haters are
they're not your audience.
They're not your audience. So don't cater to them.
Right. You can try to like appease everybody, but ultimately it's just going to take you away from the people who really would benefit from what you have to say and really would resonate with you. That's I think a big lesson I had to learn was that ultimately, like, especially in a business like mine where like I am the face of it, you're gonna attract people who like you. Like that's just ultimately what it's down to. Like you are communicating in a certain way, you're being yourself, and there are gonna be people who love that and there are gonna be people who hate that. And like all you can do is really focus on the people who love it. Like that's the best thing you can do in that scenario, is not to like widen and try to focus on everybody, but to get even more specific and be like, okay, these people, they get it, they know what I'm doing, they want to do it with me, so that's who I'm going to talk to, and I'm just going to ignore everybody else.
Okay, so if there is someone else out there, let's say they're in music or art or anything maybe they're in gardening, and they're ready to turn what they do into a business, what would be your first piece of advice?
There's a lot. I'm trying to think of like the most helpful thing I can say.
Or you could give a couple of things. Okay. Let's get them on the road. Okay.
Well, first, I think it's really important just to get to the point where you can acknowledge that like you don't have to be the only person in the world doing what you're doing. Like we just talked about, like you're going to attract people who like you. So it doesn't matter if other people are doing it already. Of course, there's going to be other gardeners or other musicians or other artists. I am not the only person teaching this stuff. I scroll through Facebook and Facebook feeds me ads for my competitors now because I always click on them because I want to see what they're doing. So I'm like, there's tons of people out here doing very similar stuff. And sometimes I feel like it can feel discouraging if you think about it the wrong way, because you approach it and you see it and you're like, oh gosh, like there's no room for me. Everybody's already doing this and they're better than me. And why would anyone listen to me? Those are the thoughts I had.
I think those are the thoughts we all have.
Yeah. And because I remember, when we first started this, like Luke and I were arguing because he was like, you can do this. Like, there's no reason why you can't also be one of these people. I'm like, but look at they're so much better than me. Why would anyone listen to me when there are these people to listen to?
And look at you now.
Yeah. And so you really just have to accept, like, of course you're not going to be the only person doing what you do. It's a huge world. There are 7 billion people here. Like like there's only so many things you can do. It's not going to be brand new. But you can bring your own voice and your own passion to what you're doing, and people will, resonate with that and they'll like it. So find your own voice and just accept that, like, you're going to be among others. There are going to be other people doing what you're doing, but that's okay. And you can still be you and do your thing and be awesome at it. And another thing I think is, like, don't devalue yourself. Like, I think it took me a while to get to where I was comfortable, like, charging what my time is worth. Like, I was basically making, like, less than minimum wage for a long time doing stuff. And you have to just get comfortable with the fact that, like, your skills, what you are bringing to the table, it has value. People want to do it. So if it's something that you're interested in, there are other people who are interested in it too. Got a little tongue-tied there. But there are other people out there who want to do what you're doing. what you're doing is valuable to those people. So don't devalue yourself. Like, it is worth something.
So you would say mindset is the first step.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest hurdle for me, was absolutely mindset. I think all the other stuff you can learn, like learning how to sell. There's a million different ways to sell things. There's a million different ways to like create an ad that works, and there's tons of resources out there about that stuff. But for me, the hardest thing to learn was just to like be willing to try things and be willing to like put myself out there,
be
and
willing to fail.
Yeah, and to trust that, you know, I don't have to be the only or even the absolute best to still be great at what I do.
Okay,
you know?
I love that. So now let's say someone has gone through the mindset work.
Okay.
And there's like, okay, I can take it. I'm going to thicken my skin. I'm going to try this. What's the first thing they should do? Do they need to start with an audience maybe?
I'm trying to think what we did. We've always used paid ads to build our audience. And I think that there's definitely value there, because you can spend years and years working really hard to get an organic audience, but you can't be as direct with who you're capturing. So what we did early on is we figured out who was interested in buying what we were selling, and we advertised to those people. So we're not wasting a lot of time and energy on, again, like, you don't want to advertise to the haters. They're not going to buy from you anyway. So like, you really want to focus on the people who you know are your right audience. So if you can figure that out, that's a huge step. One of the things we do early on whenever we're working on a new idea or a new product is we start with like a survey, and we try to figure out, we'll like run ads to a survey and, you know, maybe give people like a freebie, something on the other end, like, oh, get a free cheat sheet or something if you take the survey. Basically just to get input from other people, because you are in your own head so much that like you're thinking one thing, and sometimes you find out that your audience is thinking something completely different. And then, but what you're looking for is, you're looking for like, what language are they using? What do they want to know? Like, what do they think they need to know to get to where they want to be? Because if you can figure those things out, then you can figure out how to talk to your people more effectively. Because I think a lot of creatives, we want to teach and we want to get into the nitty gritty really fast, and we want to get into like, you know, how to do all this complicated stuff, and we're trying to like talk to people as if they already know what we know. And you really have to like back up a little bit and figure out like, where are they now? What do they think they need? And how can I give them that, but also get them what they really need, you know?
Very good. And that's a fine distinction.
It is.
Yeah. So okay, start with mindset. Mm-hmm. Next, figure out who your audience is, and then start connecting with them.
Yes, I think that's a great way to put it. I think those are the most important things to start with, because that at least gives you a foundation to build on. Like that's what we did first before we ever built the course. Is we got to know our audience doing the subscription thing a little bit. We did the survey to figure out like, what do you want? What do you think you need? And how can we give you that? And then we sat down and we outlined a course to answer those questions,
it was a
basically.
hit, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
right
pretty much. Yeah, it took us a little bit to figure out our advertising and messaging. You know, it took us like a couple of months after finishing the course to kind of get everything tweaked so that it actually worked. We launched it initially and kind of got like a meh reception. But we tried a few different ways of offering the course until we landed on something that was a big hit. And as soon as people started getting into the course for real, it really took off. So
That's
it
amazing.
was, in the first year from our first course, we did $800,000, which was huge step up for us.
Yeah. So you got out of that box.
Yes.
Into a house.
Yes.
No, thank you so much. I feel like so often when we think of freelance or solopreneurship, we think about, I have to go learn a skill and I have to get clients. No, you can take your passion, the thing you love most in this world, the thing that actually does make you happy, and you can monetize it.
Yeah.
That is a perfectly valid way to build a business, and maybe even a better business.
I would argue that I think it's one of the best ways to start a business.
Definitely. So, Rebecca, where can people find you online?
I am on Facebook and Instagram as Rebecca Tillman-Young, no hyphen in the Instagram handle, it's just all one word. Mm-hmm. And you can find my website for my courses, rtyart.com. So just the letters rtyart.com.
Perfect. And I want to encourage everybody, if you are the least bit interested in art, you need to check out rtyart.com.
That's it.
Okay. I think you'll be glad you did. It's a fantastic course. I've seen it. And we're also going to get some pictures inside her studio. So be watching my social media accounts for some of those pictures. So tell me this. You're a solopreneur, or you want to be. What are you doing to grow your business? What are you investing in your own growth to be able to achieve your dreams? Solopreneurlife.com is there for you. So go check that out if you're the least bit interested in building your solopreneur skills so you can also maybe turn your passion into a business. Don't forget to subscribe to the Solopreneur Life Podcast wherever you turn in, and join us next week. We're going to cover some more deep and fun stuff that you need to know to build your business. In the meantime, stay awesome.